The Program for International Student Assessment is a worldwide study by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in member and non-member nations of 15-year-old school pupils' scholastic performance on mathematics, science, and reading. It was first performed in 2000 and then repeated every 3 years. It is done with a view to improving education policies and outcomes. It measures problem solving and cognition in daily life. 470,000 15-year-old students representing 65 nations and territories participated in Pisa 2009. An additional 50,000 students representing 9 nations were tested in 2010. The trends in international mathematics and science study and the progress in international reading literacy study by the International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievement are similar studies. Framework. Pisa stands in a tradition of international school studies, undertaken since the late 1950s by the International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievement. Much of PISA's methodology follows the example of the trends in international mathematics and science study, which in turn was much influenced by the U.S. National Assessment of Educational Progress. The reading component of Pisa is inspired by the IEA's progress in international reading literacy study. Pisa aims at testing literacy in 3 competence fields: reading, mathematics, science on a 1,000-point scale. The Pisa Mathematics Literacy Test asks students to apply their mathematical knowledge to solve problems set in real-world contexts. To solve the problems, students must activate a number of mathematical competencies as well as a broad range of mathematical content knowledge. TIMSS, on the other hand, measures more traditional classroom content such as an understanding of fractions and decimals and the relationship between them. Pisa claims to measure education's application to real-life problems and lifelong learning. In the reading test, OECD, Pisa does not measure the extent to which 15-year-old students are fluent readers or how competent they are at word recognition tasks or spelling. Instead, they should be able to construct, extend and reflect on the meaning of what they have read across a wide range of continuous and non-continuous texts. Development and implementation. Developed from 1997, the first Pisa assessment was carried out in 2000. The results of each period of assessment take about 1.5 years to be analyzed. First results were published in November 2001. The release of raw data and the publication of technical report and data handbook only took place in spring 2002. The triennial repeats follow a similar schedule. The process of seeing through a single Pisa cycle, start to finish, always takes over 4 years. Every period of assessment focuses on one of the 3 competence fields of reading, math, science, but the 2 others are tested as well. After 9 years, a full cycle is completed. After 2000, reading was again the main domain in 2009. Pisa is sponsored, governed, and coordinated by the OECD. The test design, implementation, and data analysis is delegated to an international consortium of research and educational institutions led by the Australian Council for Educational Research. ASA leads in developing and implementing sampling procedures and assisting with monitoring sampling outcomes across these countries. The assessment instruments fundamental to PISA's reading, mathematics, science, problem-solving, computer-based testing, background and contextual questionnaires are similarly constructed and refined by ASA. ASA also develops purpose-built software to assist in sampling and data capture, and analyses all data. The source code of the data analysis software is not made public. Method of testing. Sampling. The students tested by Pisa are aged between 15 years and 3 months and 16 years and 2 months at the beginning of the assessment period. The school year pupils are in is not taken into consideration. Only students at school are tested, not homeschoolers. In Pisa 2006, however, several countries also used a grade-based sample of students. This made it possible to study how age and school year interact. To fulfill OECD requirements, each country must draw a sample of at least 5,000 students. In small countries like Iceland and Luxembourg, where there are fewer than 5,000 students per year, an entire age cohort is tested. Some countries used much larger samples than required to allow comparisons between regions. Each student takes a 2-hour handwritten test. Part of the test is multiple choice and part involves fuller answers. There are 6.5 hours of assessment material, but each student is not tested on all the parts. Following the cognitive test, participating students spend nearly 1 more hour answering a questionnaire on the background including learning habits, motivation, and family. School directors fill in a questionnaire describing school demographics, funding, etc. In 2012, the participants were, for the first time in the history of large-scale testing and assessments, offered a new type of problem, i.e., interactive problems requiring exploration of a novel virtual device. In selected countries, Pisa started experimentation with computer adaptive testing. National add-ons. Countries are allowed to combine Pisa with complementary national tests. Germany does this in a very extensive way. On the day following the international test, students take a national test called Pisa-E. Test items of Pisa-E are closer to TIMSS than to Pisa. While only about 5,000 German students participate in the international and the national test, another 45,000 take only the latter. This large sample is needed to allow an analysis by federal states. Following a clash about the interpretation of 2006 results, the OECD warned Germany that it might withdraw the right to use the PISA label for national tests. Data scaling. From the beginning, PISA has been designed with one particular method of data analysis in mind. Since students work on different test booklets, raw scores must be scaled to allow meaningful comparisons. Scores are thus scaled so that the OECD average in each domain is 500 and the standard deviation is 100. This scaling is done using the Rasch model of item response theory. According to IRT, it is not possible to assess the competence of students who solved none or all of the test items. This problem is circumvented by imposing a Gaussian prior probability distribution of competences. The scaling procedure is described in nearly identical terms in the technical reports of Pisa 2000, 2003, 2006. NAEP and TIMSS use similar scaling methods. Results. All Pisa results are tabulated by country. Recent Pisa cycles have separate provincial or regional results for some countries. Most public attention concentrates on just one outcome: the mean scores of countries and their rankings of countries against one another. In the official reports, however, country-by-country rankings are given not as simple league tables but as cross-tables indicating for each pair of countries whether or not mean score differences are statistically significant. In favorable cases, a difference of 9 points is sufficient to be considered significant. Pisa never combines mathematics, science and reading domain scores into an overall score. However, commentators have sometimes combined test results from all three domains into an overall country ranking. Such meta-analysis is not endorsed by the OECD, although official summaries sometimes use scores from a testing cycle's principal domain as a proxy for overall student ability. 2012 Pisa 2012 was presented on 3 December 2013, with results for around 510,000 participating students in all 34 OECD member countries and 31 partner countries. This testing cycle had a particular focus on mathematics, where the mean score was 494. A sample of 1,688 students from Puerto Rico took the assessment, scoring 379 in math, 404 in reading and 401 in science. 2009. The Pisa 2009 cycle included results in mathematics, science and reading for all 36 OECD member countries and 37 partner countries. Of the partner countries, only selected areas of 3 countries, India, Venezuela and China, were assessed. Pisa 2009 Plus, released in December 2011, included data from 10 additional partner countries which had testing delayed from 2009 to 2010 because of scheduling constraints. 2006-2003. The results for Pisa 2003 were released on 14 December 2004. This Pisa cycle tested 275,000 15-year-olds on mathematics, science, reading and problem-solving and involved schools from 30 OECD member countries and 11 partner countries. Note that for science and reading, the means displayed are for all students, but for these 2 subjects, not all of the students answered questions in these domains. In the 2003 OECD technical report, there are different country means available for students who had exposure to these domains. 2000. The results for the first cycle of the Pisa survey were released on 14 November 2001. 265,000 15-year-olds were tested in 28 OECD countries and 4 partner countries on mathematics, science and reading. An additional 11 countries were tested later in 2002. Comparison with other studies. The correlation between Pisa 2003 and TIMSS 2003 grade 8 country means is 0.84 in mathematics, 0.95 in science. The values go down to 0.66 and 0.79 if the 2 worst performing developing countries are excluded. Correlations between different scales and studies are around 0.80. The high correlations between different scales and studies indicate common causes of country differences or a homogeneous underlying factor of cognitive competence. European Economic Area countries perform slightly better in Pisa, the Commonwealth of Independent States and Asian countries in TIMSS. Content balance and years of schooling explain most of the variation.